This is Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, presented by Emerald City Athletics.
It's Seahawks Stories with Jim Zorn, yours truly, Steve Raible, in the 50th season of the Seattle Seahawks. And we're talking old times now. Basically, I don't remember where I just parked the car, but 50 seasons ago, I remember details like I can't remember anything else. It's amazing. You?
I can remember our training camp. I can remember working out on extra genies.
Yes, those
extra genies
ropes.
They were
that
you twisted the ropes and then you'd pull down. And Jack loved those things.
Yeah,
he had just committed, and I don't know if that was part of a highly budgeted item, but that's what we had to do.
Yeah, every
day, partner up. And you work the extra genies before you got onto the field.
Right. It was a way of almost like doing isometric exercises for your muscles, your legs, your arms, and all that. But don't get me wrong, that wasn't all you did to get ready, because once you finished all that, you came together as a team, you lined up. And how many people you figure we had at training camp, that first training camp in 76? 120 maybe?
I was going to say over 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys there.
So here we all lined up. The heat, the sun, and we learned about this in our first little orientation camp, because there were no mini camps, there were no OTAs, none of that. You showed up, and part of the idea of training camp, 6 preseason games, was you got in shape during training camp. You didn't necessarily come in perfect condition, ready to play like they do now, because now training camp is so much more abbreviated and it's much more a learning process. But practice every day, twice a day, started with up-downs.
Up, downs. Get them up. Get them up. Oh, yeah.
For those of you that are watching, I'm not going to demonstrate all of it, but basically Jack would say, get them up. And so
front.
You'd run in place.
Yeah.
And when he'd say front, you'd throw yourself on the ground, and then up, and then you jump up off the ground, and then back, and you'd throw yourself down, and then you'd yell up, and you'd get back up. And for us skinny guys, it wasn't that bad, although you do them, it seemed like, for 10 minutes.
We would do 50. Yeah. I counted 50 one of the days. And it would, you just kind of would imagine Jack being mad at his dog or somebody that day when we were doing that many. Sometimes there'd be 20.
Yeah.
So, but rarely were there a few.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure we were warmed up. I will tell you, I hated those things.
Yes, everybody hated them.
But you did not have to do a big stretch routine.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do. You didn't have to warm up with a bunch of stuff.
That was the extra genie that warmed you up.
Yeah. Whatever it was.
Yeah.
I always felt ready to go after up downs. And I will tell you, I did up downs on my own sometimes.
What are you,
to
crazy?
Prepare for up downs?
Oh, for crying out
right?
loud.
You had to work up downs to get ready for up downs, just so that I could last. And I felt like, because you're pushing yourself up off the ground, you're on your back, and then I would feel so bad for all the heavy guys.
I was going to say the fat guys had a tough time. After about 5, nobody had their knees up. They were all just kind of, their feet were shuffling in place, and he'd say front, and some of the guys literally would just fall like a tree.
He could have said flop.
That's exactly what they did. It looked like a cypress tree falling in the middle of practice. All right, you big guys,
roll back.
And then we'd all jump up, and it'd take them a while. They'd push themselves up off the ground. They'd start again. Then back. Back was really tough. It was like a turtle trying to get up for some of those guys. I felt so bad for them.
As soon as you did your first one, you were hoping that whistle. You couldn't wait for the whistle to blow and have it be over, because you knew that was just the grind every day.
Every day, twice a day.
Yeah.
Now in training camp, and this is by rule because this is a negotiated deal between the Players Association and the league, but 2-a-days, literally one practice is a walkthrough, more or less, in the morning. And then in the afternoon you can have practices. You can only have 3 straight practices with pads, and then you have to either have a day off or take the pads off.
You have to have you can have 2 padded days in a row.
Yeah.
But that third day is no pads, and it's got to be a special teams day. Right? So you can still do a walkthrough, but then you have a special teams practice because the players need rest.
Well, and I'm not saying we were special because the game was different in those days, but
that would have been a smarter way for us to work out. I think it's smarter today than...
We didn't have water. I mean, how many times have you been asked about that?
Oh, yeah.
In Cheney, 100-plus degrees, But Jack came from that school. Jack Patera, our head coach, came from the school, the Bud Grant School of Coaching back in Minnesota, and the old school of coaching where, listen, we're not going to be out here for very long. It's not going to like we're going to have a 3.5 or 4 hour practice. So hydrate before practice and you'll be fine. And so that's what we did. And he also used to say, I don't want to interrupt the flow of practice by having everybody stop, find, the guy who's got the little hose with the water tank
right.
and take a drink and then all come back to the line of scrimmage. We're not going to do that. So we didn't have water, but we managed okay. I mean, I don't ever remember getting lightheaded or dizzy or anything like that.
But people have to know there was no water at any point.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just for one practice or the afternoon practice or the morning practice. It was never.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll never forget some of the guys. It was rumored that I was doing this, but I wasn't. I participated, but I did not. I couldn't think of this. But guys would pay the ball people, the ball kids or the ball boys, money. They would pay them for stealing away ice chips and sneaking them in a towel. Hey, get me a towel. And they'd have ice chips in it because you just had to figure that out. So I ate a few ice chips myself.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was then. That was 50 seasons ago. So it was a completely different game then. But we'd go out in the morning, shoulder pads and helmets and shorts. And then in the afternoon, full gear. And that started from maybe the first day of training camp. And it seemed like, after we didn't have a day off maybe for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, there was no negotiated player arrangement with the union or anything like that. It was just, hey, this is what we do, and another team, that's what they do. Yeah. There were some similarities in training camps, but they were brutal. Yeah, right. You were gonna.
Oh, and you hit every day. You scrimmaged every day, whether it was goal line scrimmage. We do 7-on-7 passing drills, 11-on-11, full go. And then after practice, we'd run gassers.
Yeah.
So gassers are you start on one sidelines, whistle blows, you run to the hash mark. Put your hand down on the ground. Whistle blows again, you run again to the far hash mark, and then the far. And every time the whistle blows, you're putting your hand down and starting again. Yeah. And we'd run 8 or 10 of those sometimes.
Run through the line.
That's right.
Touch the line.
That's right. And all in an effort to, get you in shape, keep you in shape.
But think about the psychology of that too, is you felt like if you didn't touch the line, well, you were trying not to run as far, but you're trying to be first, or you're trying to be first in your group, or be first on offense or whatever. And the psychology of that, because if you didn't try, it was like you weren't going to make the team.
Right.
The psychology of that was interesting, and some guys could glide through that, which really ticked me off.
Yeah,
because I was fighting to try to be up there, with the group.
That was the one thing I could do. I could run. I was always, I was always fast and a track guy, so I could run.
So how about our first training camp? As we're going along, what did Jack have to do? Because we were going to have our first game in the Kingdom, right?
Preseason,
do you remember we had to practice standing at attention with our helmets under our right arms?
Yes.
And we had to be on each hash mark, aligned along the field, out towards the field of play on that hash.
Right, for the national anthem.
And we practiced it.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, we're going to practice the national anthem. Do you remember what else we had to practice? As the story goes, and you can correct me as we go along here, we practiced the national anthem, but I think after the first preseason game, Jack was really upset because he wanted to say things after the game to our team. And so what we had to do was, he said, okay, we're going to practice running off the field after the game. And everybody's looking around going, what? And he goes, I want you guys to be in the locker room after the game, not talking to your friends. So we're going to practice that. So we all got on the sideline. And then I think it was our trainers had a big sign that said, everybody's friend. And they held it up. So Jack would blow the whistle, and then they'd hold the sign up. And then he said, I want you, if you want to wave, you wave. And so we're running off the field, and we're waving to the signs of the trainers
Yeah.
that says everybody's friends, and we run off. He goes, okay, let's get out of here. Let's do it again. Okay, ready? Game's over. And you're practicing running off the field, waving to your friend.
Yeah.
And he goes, you can talk to these guys at the bus, whatever you want, but do not talk to them after the game.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Well, from a very personal note, I can tell you what else happened in that whole exercise that you just described. So we're playing the Chargers, San Diego. I think it was preseason. And Billy Shields.
Oh, Billy Shields. Yeah, Bill Shields.
Was their offensive lineman. He was a Georgia Tech teammate of mine.
Oh.
So Billy was their tackle. So we play the game. And the game is over, and he comes jogging across the field, heading my way to shake hands. And I'm backing up, trying to get away. Billy, I can't talk to you right now. I can't. I'm not allowed to talk to you. And he's looking at me. What do you mean you're not allowed to talk to me? And I'm kind of, I'll talk to you after the game. So Terry Beeson, linebacker. Peter Cronin, linebacker.
Yeah.
This was been 77 because that's when they came in. And me, all of us were kind of doing this gliding away from former teammates. We did that same drill at training camp, only we were the only ones that had to run it, the three of us.
I didn't.
And our friends were all the way on the far field under the goalpost. You want to talk to your friends? Sprint over there and talk to them and then run back. And we were the only three that had to do it. We had to do that about 3 times.
I can't remember that. Oh, my gosh.
You guys were hysterical because you didn't have to run.
Yeah.
And Piggy and Beeson and myself had to.
Gosh.
But one of those training camp moments that I'll just never forget. And Billy Shields, God bless him, he took it so well, but he laughed years later. He said, what was that all about?
Comedic.
I said, we weren't supposed to talk to you guys. Jack said, if we beat them, they don't want to hear from us. And if they beat us, we don't want to hear what they have to say.
Right.
So that was one of those fun training camp moments. Here's another fun training camp thought. We talked about hydration. Drink tons of water before practice and all that stuff, right? And then after practice. Well, there was another way to hydrate, as a matter of fact.
After practice.
After practice. And in Cheney, there were like 3 watering holes, 3 establishments. Mm-hmm. And they kind of got separated out very quickly as one where the coaches would go to have like a drink or something after team meetings and stuff in the evening. One where the press would go and fans.
I didn't know that.
And then one where the players would go. And it was that one was called Showalters Hall.
Yeah.
It was named after Showalters Hall, which was a building on the campus of Eastern Washington. And they had foosball and pool and beer and wine. They didn't serve hard liquor, beer and wine. And so a few of us, it took us a little while to figure all this out, but after practice, you had to, a lot of us would go stand in the cold tubs, ice water in the tubs just to kind of cool your knees and your ankles and feet down because you're out there running so much and it was hot. So you did that. And then we had to go to dinner. That was a rule. You didn't have to eat, but you had to go and sign in for dinner and show that you had been there. So a bunch of us would jump in the car, Adkins and myself, and I think McCullum, Bebout, and Artie, Kuhn, all the linemen.
You had to rehydrate.
Exactly. So we'd run to Showalters, and Showalters, they would have them lined up on the bar, those mini pitchers about this big with ice,
the plastic
and
ones,
some beer. And they'd have a whole row of them lined up. And we'd just come in, and I think we threw $1.50 down, and you just grab it, and you get fluids in you any way you could. And trust me, and I don't recommend this to young people, obviously, but to old guys, professional guys, that chance to just hydrate quickly and get some fluid in you and that tasted good on a hot day. Yeah. Then you'd go back and you'd have dinner. You felt like you could eat some dinner. Then we'd go into our meetings, and then we go back to Showalters after our meetings and then have what it was, 11 o'clock bed check, I think. Yeah. So that was one way that a lot of us, I know you didn't enjoy a beverage.
I think I went out there a couple times, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't need to hydrate, but I understand. I think that's pretty healthy. It wasn't. It wasn't unhealthy. What you guys were doing, you were trying to get fluids in you in any way you can.
Right, and it was beer. Yeah. It wasn't anything awful. But
think about what I missed out on was all the stories that were being told all of the ranting and raving. Can you believe this and can you believe that? That is the camaraderie that happens in training camp where you really get to know each other. So when you're out on that field, everybody's going through the same thing, and there's that commonality, which is hugely valuable for a team to come together.
Yeah.
You know, the chemistry.
Yeah.
And a lot of it happened right there.
When they started having training camp practices over at the facility, the second facility up by Northwest College.
Yeah.
But I remember when Dennis Erickson came as the head coach, he wanted to take us all back to Cheney because he liked that idea, that camaraderie of being in one place, and the guys could go off and kind of do their thing, in the evening and get to know each other a little bit, rather than going back and sitting in your dorm room. And, things were just starting to come around with, technology and that sort of stuff, none of which we had. We barely, if you didn't bring a little television with you to your dorm room, you didn't have a TV.
Didn't you have to rent air conditioner and shove it in your window? Or
we never did that. Sam and I just had
me neither,
box fans.
We didn't even have I don't even think we had a fan, Steve and I, because we were down low. We were in one of those lower deals.
After the first year, we were too.
Yeah, I remember Dan Dornick, whenever he came, he put tin foil on every window in his room, and it was like 62 degrees. If you ever wanted to know what Alaska was like, just go into Dan Dornick's room. Yeah. No, there was no sunlight, and it was like 62 degrees. Yeah. I mean, it was freezing.
And unlike today, when so many guys, they have their own rooms and all that kind of stuff, we always had roommates. Everybody on the team had a roommate. Yeah. In fact, as I remember, I think the coaches roomed together for the first few years over there in those dorms.
They might have.
And I can't remember the name of our dorm.
It's Louise Anderson Hall.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we spent a year of our lives in those dorms.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. But it was such a great facility for a training camp.
It was.
It was kind of away from everything, but you still had the little town of Cheney right there. And you had great facilities. I mean, the fields, wide open fields.
Everything
surrounded by wheat.
Everything was a distance, though.
Yeah.
You had to either most guys drove.
Yeah.
They drove from practice to dinner, and then drove back to the dorm, and then drove to our meetings.
Yeah.
And I rode my bike because I had my bike over there. I'll never forget driving over to Cheney. I rode one time with Sam Atkins.
Yeah.
And Sam Atkins had a Jeep, right? And I'm thinking, this is going to be great, He didn't take the doors off or anything like that, but he had a Jeep. We're driving. We had to get off the freeway about every 100 miles, it seemed like. I bet he stopped for gas 4 times to get to Cheney, Washington. Because his gas, I said, what, do you have a 6-gallon gas tank? What is going on around here? Oh, we don't want to run out of gas. Sam, I never rode with him again. I would never do that.
You took the Volkswagen over, though, didn't you?
I took the V-Dub there.
The little yellow bug that Jim was so well known for.
But one of the very first training camp, I rode back with Greg Collins, and that was a huge story in itself.
He was a linebacker from Notre Dame by way of San Francisco in the expansion draft.
One of the funniest guys anybody could ever. You're pretty funny, Steve. That's why you and I like to hang with you. You amuse a lot of people. But
funny how? How am I funny?
But
thanks, Joe.
Greg Collins he just had a really kind of askew sense of humor, and it was really funny. I mean, there was guys that probably were funnier than him. Yeah. But we rode back from Cheney to Seattle.
Yeah.
I needed a ride. So, and I didn't have my car there because I had rode out I wasn't going to ride back with Sam. So he had a Porsche, 911 Targa Porsche. And I'll never forget, because I was in a hurry. I wanted to get home. I wanted to get back.
Yeah.
And he was not in a hurry at all. We had lunch last. We got boxed lunches for the car, and everybody had left. And I'll never forget when we went into his car, he put on his leather gloves, and he looks over. This is his humor. He went like this, and he puts on his leather gloves, his driving gloves. We started going, I kid you not, we're going about 135 miles an hour, and we're passing. I think he wanted to pass everybody that had left earlier than we did. So we're passing guys. We pass Jack Patera, who's in the back seat of a car, and we're going about 90 miles an hour. But no, we're not on the street on I-90. We're in the opposite shoulder. So we're not even on the shoulder. I'm passing Jack. We're passing Jack Patera. He's sitting in the driver's side passenger seat, and I'm in his Porsche. And I look over like this, and I see Jack. We're on the shoulder of the opposite direction, and I just raised my hand, and he saw me and looked at me, and we took off, and we drove all the way home. I mean, it took us just a couple hours to get home, you know. But right before we got to Issaquah, it had been raining, and for some reason, Greg's Porsche hydroplaned, and now we're going, and we're not even going. We're going about 65 miles an hour backwards, skidding along the road. And we kind of stop. We kind of go up on this berm, and it just tears up the bottom of his car. He drives it right to the Porsche dealership, which was off 148th there, and I think there was tons of damage. And the next day, he got cut. And a lot of people would say, "You drove our starting quarterback home, did you?"
Well, and you remember Jack gave a little speech the night before we broke camp. Here are the things to think about. Be careful out there when you're driving home. And it may have been the speech started after that event of you guys.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that. And it, when I started to hear all the details about, going fast is one thing. I didn't know 130, but when we knew that you guys had spun out and could have been really serious accident, could have been.
No fault of Greg's either, because now we slowed down because we're getting right into Issaquah,
Well, but still, you can't take that chance with yourself, with your starting quarterback, or with all the other folks that are out there driving around. Greg ended up never played football again, but ended up becoming a terrific character actor in Hollywood. And I don't. Is he still? I
think he's still down there. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's still down there. And he was always a thug. He was one of the always a goon on the. I'm gonna blow you up.
He was an inside linebacker, so he fit that role pretty well. It was easy for him to play that part.
Yeah.
But good guy, liked to drive fast, and that was the last time he drove fast as a member of the NFL.
And I felt so bad being the passenger in this car, but I'll never forget that sheepish look as I'm looking at Jack Patera, and he's in the back seat real low, and he's looking at me, and
he probably
we just
was
took
just
off.
Steaming the whole rest of the drive home. Yeah. Well, listen, this has just been a taste of that 76 training camp. There is so much more to talk about 50 seasons of the Seahawks. When we come back next time, we'll talk about that first year, the ups, the downs, the guys that made impressions, the guys that ended up sticking around for more than just a couple of seasons. But it's all a part of the great Seahawks history that we talk about every opportunity we get. So thanks to all of you for listening. Z-Man, always a pleasure. We'll talk next time.
It's fun being with you, Raves. It's fun being with you.